How the hell did they do it? Apple has not released a revolutionary product since Steve Jobs died. Yet, their revenues keep going up. They're no longer at the top of their game. There are phones with better cameras, with better screens. There are laptops with faster processors. There are laptops with touch screens. From the technological perspective, Apple has not been at the top of their game for a long time. Yet they still got hordes of people who line up at 5 in the morning to buy whatever new product Apple releases. I'm still sticking with the old phone because to me it's the best phone Apple ever released. But don't look just at me. What matters is what the company does. And one thing you will realize is that people do it not because Apple has superior products. It's arguable whether they do or they don't. From the specs perspective, not anymore. People line up 5 in the morning to buy their products. People follow their releases because of one thing and one thing only: their brand. Apple brand today in 2019 is valued at over $300 billion. Just think about it. The brand itself, $300 billion. That's a lot of $1 billion. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the strategy that they used to build their brand. Hi, I'm Andrei Mincov, the founder of Trademark Factory. And like I said, in this video, I'm going to go through what Apple did to build their brand, to build it to be over $300 billion worth. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly go through their story, and I'll also go through the trademarks that they filed, when they filed them, for which goods and services they filed them, and you will see the pattern and you will see exactly why Apple is what it is today. All right, let's do this. So quickly, everyone knows what Apple is, but history is that's really what I'm more interested in. So we're just gonna go through their story. And this is very important because the dates, the relative dates, is what matters. So Apple Computer Company, founded on April 1st, April Fool's Day, 1976. Okay, 1976 in April. Their first product, Apple I. So they first shown to the public at the Homebrew Computer Club. Apple I was sold as a motherboard, blah, 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 blah. Apple I went on sale in July of 76 and was whatever market price was. Incorporated, Apple Inc., Apple Computer Inc. was incorporated on January 3rd, 1977. So January of 1977, that's important. So then we go here. During the first 5 years of operation, revenues grew exponentially, doubling about every 4 months. Between September 77 and September 80, yearly sales grew from 700,000, well, close to 800,000 to 118 million. All right, so they've got quite a growth here. So Apple II introduced April of 77, okay? So we're gonna go back to these dates, but mark them up mentally. Make a mental note. So April 77, a year after they incorporated, they got Apple II. So it was great. By the end of the 70s, Apple had a staff of computer designers, production line, introduced Apple III of May of 1980, okay? So Jobs and several Apple employees visited Xerox in 1979 to see a demonstration of Okay, so there we go. We're gonna just start there, okay? So no. December 12th, 1980, Apple went public. So they went public 1980. So just think about this. Started in April of 1976, incorporated January 1977, and went public in 1980. So these are the most relevant date. Now check this out. I did a quick search for the trademarks they filed in the 70s because USPTO's database is messed up in the sense that it doesn't allow you to sort the application by the filing date. So I had to do some magic here to only show trademarks they filed in the 70s. Here's what we got. Prepare to be surprised. So their first application, very first application filed in March of 1977. Remember, they incorporated in January of 1977 and they went public in 1980. So their first trademark, Apple, filed March of 1977 and they filed it for computers, right? And computer programs recorded on paper and tape. So that was changed into computer programs, namely computer operating software, computer software development tools, game software, and computer software for creating and editing text and graphics. So in class 9, and they claimed use back to April of 1976, which is when the company was founded. That's their very first trademark, and it's still the same trademark they have been renewing since 1977. They got it registered in November of 1977, so it only took them, 8 months, which is now longer. It takes longer in the US now than this. So that's their first one. Their second one filed in March of 1978. The logo still being renewed. Goods and services, computers and computer programs recorded on paper and tape. So this and computer programs recorded on paper and tape, they removed it because they no longer sell computer programs recorded on paper and tape. Can you just imagine this? Their trademark said computer programs recorded on paper and tape, right? So they had to get rid of that. And their third trademark was the multicolored logo. This one is canceled because they no longer use it, the rainbow one. And let's see what it said. So illustration without any words, consists of design of apple with a bite removed. Drawing is line for the colors green, yellow, coral, red, violet, and blue. So they claimed the colors, and they had it also for computers and computer programs recorded on paper and tape. And the trademark was canceled just in 2014 when they stopped using the logo, and I guess when they also stopped selling it on paper and tape. It's interesting. Was there renewal? Okay, so the USPTO doesn't show that. Okay, they also had Apple as a word mark, January 79, also canceled because they didn't renew it. And this one was for magazines for the personal computer field, which is a weird way to phrase the field. Usually today it would say magazines in the field of personal computers, and apparently they stopped selling them. So the mark was canceled in 2016. All right, so yeah, also doesn't show the renewals. So that's fascinating that they have been renewing it for so long. And the last one in the 80s, also the logo with the rainbow, and this was canceled in 2014. This was filed for disk drives and modulator, demodulator sets. Okay, so I have no idea what modulator and demodulator sets are. I understand what disk drives are. So they had that trademark also filed in the late 70s. Okay, so they had the wordmark Apple, their very first, March of 77, just after they incorporated, long before big success came to them, way before they went public. There's a story there. There's a lesson there that they didn't wait until it was too late to protect their brand. Right? They released their first. So let's just look at this again. Founded April 76. First was sold in July 76. So before they filed for the trademark. And then the company was incorporated in January of 77. And then Apple II was introduced on April 16, 77. Well, guess what? They didn't introduce Apple II before they filed their first trademark. So they had their first one, saw some interest from people, and they incorporated, they filed their trademark, and only then they released Apple II to the world. Good lesson there. So first, they tipped their toes in the water, right? Saw that market had demand for whatever they were planning to do. And then they became serious. It stopped being a garage hobby. It became a real business. They incorporated, got the trademark, and they started creating their amazing new products. Okay, so let's have a look at what they did. Let's see what they did in the 80s. Okay, so that's going to be, I'm just going to change the dates, and we're going to see what they filed, what trademarks they filed in the 80s. Ugh. Okay, hang on a second. So I'm going to copy the string. I'm going to go back and I'm going to open the search. I'm going to show you what I'm searching for. By the way, this could be a good lesson by itself. So I'm searching for the owner name, current owner. Because there are companies that have Apple in them, they may have nothing to do with the Apple that we're interested in. I'm also looking through their address, which is Cupertino. Makes it very easy to locate them. And also looking the specific date range. So this one is going to be, so starting from January 1st of 1980 to December 31st of 1989. So let's see. We've got 54 trademarks, not very many. And you will see what they did in the later decades. That's actually going to be pretty interesting. All right, so let's see. And like I said, there may not necessarily be in order of filing, but we got what we got. So most of them are dead because they relate to products that Apple no longer sells. And some of them are live, so let's have a look. So they had Disk 2. All right, so actually, let me close these down. So we got Disk 2 as a logo, right? They didn't renew it. It was canceled in 2002. So let's just ANET, Lisa. Let's see what this is. Another logo, and this logo was for retail credit services. Isn't that interesting? In 1983, they had a trademark for retail credit services, and it was published. And was it ever registered? Yes, it was registered. It was registered in 1984. So Apple Pay and retail credit services, few decades between them. That's pretty cool. So canceled in 2010. Let's see what else they had. So Macintosh, and this is another one we're going to check. So May of 1984, they had it for computers, computer peripheral equipment, magnetic discs. They no longer talk about paper and tape. Okay. So they had it canceled in 2008. But let's look when they introduced Macintosh. All right, there we go. So, So Jobs immediately convinced the old future computers would use a graphical user interface. Development of began for the Apple Lisa, which okay, so let's have a look at that. So it began for Apple Lisa in 1982. And let's see when Lisa was. December 30, 82. So let me read it again. The development of the graphic user interface began for the Apple Lisa in 1982, right? Developed and released in January 1983, okay? They filed their trademark in December of 1982, before they released it. They wouldn't dare releasing any new products before filing for a trademark because they knew that if they did, it would be stolen right away, that it would have massive problems fixing that. All right, that's fascinating. So, okay, going back to Macintosh, redefined it, 1893, became first personal computer, where is it? So so Lisa became the first personal computer sold to the public with a graphic user interface, but was a commercial failure due to its high price and limited software titles. So in 1985, it would be repurposed as the high-end Macintosh, okay, and discontinued in the second year. So let's open the success of Macintosh. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, okay. When was it debuted? So timeline of Macintosh models, we can check that out. So that was Lisa. So January of 84, their Didn't last very long. So let's see. Macintosh. It's not Macintosh. Is this Macintosh? Yes. May of 1984. Okay, so they got it done before release of their 512, which they were selling for several years, and the revised 128. So fascinating. Let's keep going. Let's keep going through their trademarks. So Mac Paint, Mac Write, Image Writer. I remember I had that one. Laser Writer. So they were trademarking pretty much everything. Style Writer. They had a bunch of other logos. So one like this as an outline. The other one was, what is it? So the operating system symbol. This one would be also an operating system. So these they trademarked for towels. Of all other things, towels. And this one was for clothing. All right. Okay. Interesting. Did they actually file it for the operating system itself? This, I don't even know where this was used. But whatever it was, so newsletters, magazines, pamphlets, and brochures pertaining to computers. All right. So let's see. Let's close everything down again. There's just too many windows. And so they kept going for the products. So all of these trademarks are dead, including these two, which are another rainbow and another rainbow, and all canceled. So computer magazines they had, and they also had clothing. All right, so they got all of those trademarks. And then there's few more from the 80s that are still out there. EQ Pod. I don't remember them using that lately, but so the registration has been renewed, it says. Registration filing has not been submitted. Okay, so it was renewed in 2008, but they didn't renew it in 2018. The registration will be canceled in due course. So after your trademark expires and you don't renew it, USPTO doesn't automatically very quickly cancel it. It takes some time. So it may still be showing up as live, even though it says it will be canceled. So again, when you do your trademark searches, it's important to check not just the status where it says live or dead. You also want to see the dates. When is it due for renewal? Did they miss it? Did they not miss it? How much time do they have to renew it and stuff? Okay, so let's keep going. And by the way, so EQ Pod. What the hell was EQ Pod? So EQ Pod was programmable audio equalizer. Well, EQ. Okay, so that makes sense. All right, so we got Mac App, Apple Share. So Apple Share. Okay, so let's see. This one also not renewed. All right, so this will also die. How about this one? Also not renewing. So there's a bunch of trademarks that Apple just allows to die because they can't show any use of it. In the US, when you renew your trademarks, you have to file not just the renewal request, but also a statement of use showing that you're currently using the trademark. And in most countries, there's no such requirement. So for example, in Canada, all you do is say, here's my registration fee. Oh, here's my renewal fee. There we go. You don't have to prove anything. And neither does this requirement exist in most other countries. But in the US, you have to prove it. So if you can't prove it, then you just let it die, which is what Apple did. Let's see. So a few more things here. So this outline. Okay. So this one they did renew in 2016. So it's going to be another 10 years at least. So that's for clothing, right? Sweatshirts, t-shirts, shirts, jackets, sweaters, hats, and visors. And you see the square brackets. It's because they couldn't show use for shorts or ties or belts or headbands. Their trademark registration was canceled in part for those products and services. For everything else, it continues to be active and live because they renewed it, okay? And then we keep going. So there's more, and this one is for computer magazines. So they keep deleting things that they're no longer using. So there no staplers, no staple removers, no loose leaf binders, and it was also renewed for some of the other things in 2016. Okay, and also the logo for mugs, but no dishes. drinking glasses, but no beer steins and no wine glasses. All right, but they still have this on mugs. They were able to show it, and I wonder if we're going to see that. Yeah, okay, so let's see their specimen. All right, so that's specimen of use. They're going to show size is this. Jesus. Let's download it as a PDF because it's way too big. So here, so they got a mug that they say, here's we're still using the mark. In theory, they're supposed to show use in commerce, or they're supposed to show that they're selling these somewhere. I don't know if this really qualifies as good specimen, but apparently they got away with it. Were there more pages? No. Okay, so that's it. So that's that. And they got Claris, they got Mac TCP. So that's their trademarks for the 80s. Remember, there was 5 trademarks in the 70s. There's 54 trademarks in the 80s. Let's look at their trademarks in the 90s. All right, so we got enough zeros there. Okay, 121 in the 90s. So we're gonna start from here. So again, a lot of dead ones. Power Macintosh, I had that one. So actually, let's check Power Macintosh. When did they launch Power Macintosh? Same year they introduced the Power Macintosh. Okay, so same year was 1994. So 1994 they introduced the Power Macintosh. Who wants to know when they filed their trademark for Power Macintosh? Let's check it out. 1993, December 1993. And that one was for computers and the computer peripheral equipment. And their second application registration was for books. All right, and you will notice that what they're doing is they're filing separate application for separate classes. So in the US, it makes perfect sense because the government fees per class are exactly the same. So your government fee for the first class is the same as for the second, third, fifth, and one of the approaches that sometimes is used is instead of filing one application as in 5 classes, you file 5 applications. It may add a little bit to the cost because there's admin fees and admin fees. Well, not admin fees, the legal fees that the attorneys are going to charge you to file your trademarks, because it's easier, of course, to just monitor 1 rather than 5. But the upside when you have 5 separate ones is that if there's an issue, maybe an office action or an opposition or cancellation or whatever, something, some hurdle, some issue with registration or maintenance, then it's beneficial to have them as separate, because it's harder for others to attack 5 applications, 5 registrations versus 1 with everything. Okay, so Apple Vision, so they had another. So a few logos. Let's look at this logo and this logo. All right, so more of these. Okay, so let's close everything down. Doom. Okay, so and then go back to starting from the beginning. So the first one, so Apple Vision, so bring learning home. Some more logos, Passbook, AirPlay, which is still live. Geneva. Guess what this is? Yep, it's their font. It's their font. Typeface fonts recorded on computer software. So they wanted to make sure that they own the name of the font. So if somebody steals the font or creates a similar font, they can't call it Geneva, because now Apple has a claim for the name. So you can't create something Geneva and a font, right? Or Genevian or whatever, because Apple owns the trademark. Same with Monaco. The USPTO system has changed and updated, of course, since then. Now a lot more documents are available electronically, so we don't have the initial specimen. But yeah, so iMac, apparently they got registered in 1995 and released in 98. Okay, let's keep going. Mac OS. Well, we can check that. Let's see, Mac OS and Mac, when they started calling it Mac. Okay, so Mac OS 1994 in July. So let's see, Mac OS. When did they do it? All right, so Mac OS, marketed by Apple since 2001. 2001, right? So 2001, they released it, but their trademark for Mac.os, for Mac OS, 1994. Interesting. Took them a while, but they're still using it and they're still renewing it. So this is Mac, 1993. When did they start calling it Mac? So Mac personal computers. Okay, so when did OS? When did they call it? I'm just trying to find when they stopped calling Macintosh and started calling them Mac. Okay, so all right, so that's the newer one, which is 2001. So classic Mac OS from 1984 to 2001. Okay, what do we got? Success Macintosh. All right, when did they switch? Let's check. So we're going to rename, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, it kind of makes sense. All right, so let's look at here. Okay, so branded as Mac since 1998, all right? And their trademark for Mac was 1993. There you have it. Again, they didn't wait for the new name to be adopted by the world and stolen. They just went on and trademarked it. Okay, let's keep going. So web objects, Apple. So they keep going with a lot of stuff, really. Think different. Think different. Let's see. Think different. I think that's the only one. Still a live trademark. Renewed in 2009 in April. Is it going to die? Yeah, it's going to die. So they didn't renew it in April of 2019 because they don't use it anymore. But they filed it in 1997. So let's see. When did Apple first say think different? Well, could be here. Okay, so let's see. Think different. Campaign. Think different. From 1997. Okay, well, does it tell us when? When was it released? Okay, television. Example. When did it start? 1997. When in 1997? I want to know when in 1997. Okay, so October of 1997. It looks like it's October 97. Okay, if there's a better way to find it, let me know. Post in the comment below. But this is what I have for now for Think Different. Okay, so Think Different. Let's see, what did it say in this article when? So they have this campaign. Here's the, no, it's not telling us when. All right, so sometime in 1997, maybe October, and this one says they filed for the trademark in August of 1997. They filed it for newsletters, brochures, posters dealing with the subject of computers, papers. Okay, so not the computers themselves. Interesting. Well, I'm sure we're going to find Think Different in other classes as well. So they had iMac, a bunch of logos, a bunch of dead logos. So let's just have a look at those logos. Apple Store. They got in 1999. Let's see if they had Apple Store. Apple introduced the Apple Store website in November of 1997, and the trademark is 1999. Okay, so they got it. So here they started trademarking icons. They're icons, and So and you will see that they've trademarked a ton of icons. So and this here, what they're trying to do, so they're trademarking this for computers, and the mark consists of a configuration of a computer. So here, they're not trademarking the image. They're trademarking the actual shape of the actual computer, right? So they're trying to do configuration of a computer with a teardrop-like shape formed by rounded corners surrounding the tilted back display, case of made of smooth plastic, so you can read through this. But this one is very different from normal trademarks, which is a name or a logo or a tagline. This one, they're trying to protect the shape of the actual thing. And it was registered in 2000, and they had it registered until it was canceled in 2007. So that's pretty good. All right, so let's close the tabs to the right. And so they got the iMovie, Trademarks, Final Cut Pro. So let's see. Final Cut Pro, 1998, and computer software, of course. So let's check it out. Final Cut. Is it going to tell us when? So product still unfinished at the time of the sale was renamed Final Cut Pro when it was launched in April of 1999. So Final Cut Pro released in April 1999. Trademark filed December of 1998. Do you see the pattern here? They come up with great stuff, they file a trademark, then they release it, not the other way around. And so I'm just going to go quickly now through the 2000s. So 2000s. So in 2000s, they filed 338. So again, back to the numbers. 70s, 5. 80s, 54. 90s, 120. 2000s, 338. Okay, check this out. And you can look at, well, we're going to look at. Let's do this. So they got all sorts of, here we got a bit more of live ones because they're still around. So iTunes. So let's see. Let's see if the same thing stands. So check this out. iTunes was renamed iTunes when Apple purchased it in 2000. Okay, so there was somebody else's software released by Cassidy and Green. I didn't know that. And so Apple bought it in 2000 and they renamed it to iTunes. Who's interested to know when they filed their trademark for iTunes? January of 2001. All right, interesting. When did they release iTunes? It was announced on January 9, 2001. And they filed their trademark January 9, 2001. That's fascinating. I don't know, maybe I'm just so crazy about trademarks that this stuff makes me excited, but I find it fascinating. A huge company by then, on the day of the announcement, they filed their trademark. And the reason could be that they didn't want to show their cards, right? They waited, and then boom, trademark filing and announcement. There we go. So what else? Macintosh, Mobile Me, Apple, so more and more, Mac.com, iPad. All right, so let's see, iPad. They got their trademark. Well, before we look at the trademark, let's see when they released. Apple unveiled a large screen table-like media device known as the iPad on January 27, 2010. Who's interested? Boom! 2003. 2003. And only registered in 2010. Guess why? Because they couldn't go from allowance to registration until they showed to the USPTO that they started to use the trademark. So in 2010, they did that, and they got the trademark registered. And so iPhone. So let's see when they got the iPhone. So this one was never registered. So they couldn't get them to wait. And so they've abandoned it. So let's see what happened here. So they filed, it was searched, they filed the specimen, they didn't like so they divided their trademark because it was used for some, but not for all goods and services. So they divided, and this particular one, they kept asking for extensions, and in 2013, they finally gave up, and this particular one was abandoned. So, and this was for broadcasting, transmission of radio and television programs, webcasting services, so stuff that iPhone really doesn't necessarily do. Okay, so here we got starting at 200s. Let's see if we're going to find something really cool. So innovation, iTunes Plus, so all sorts of interesting things. SMS, really? They got a trademark for SMS. for handheld, mobile, digital, electronic devices comprised of a mobile. Okay, so not the actual text message, but it's still pretty ballsy to own the SMS trademark. Okay, so Genius Bar, their operating systems, names. So another iPhone. So all of these filed, 2006. So when did they? So let's see, iPhone. When did they announce the iPhone? When did they release iPhone? Okay, first one, 2007. Released June of 2007. Trademark, 2006. See the pattern? Okay. And so we can keep going on and on and on. It'll be the exact same lesson. I'm not going to go through all of these trademarks. Just going to show them to you. iTunes, OS X, OS 10. So more iPhone, iTunes. So they keep filing new trademarks for the same names because they want to add more products and services. You can't add products or services to an existing application. You have to file a new one. So that's exactly what they're doing, right? And they've got Panther, Leopard, so all the cool names they're using. I want to see when they filed for Retina. So Keynote. See, all their software titles, they're trademarking them as a separate trademark. Why? Because the cost of trademarking is negligible compared to the cost of fighting somebody else over the same name, right? So Xcode, GarageBand, all of their software titles, iPod, Pages, so more and more, iPodcast, AirTunes. So all of these cool names that their marketers kept coming up with, they've been trademarking them. Okay, so that's the 2000s. And we're getting to the last decade, and watch this. 700, 5, 54, 120, 300 something, 700 something. Isn't that pretty cool? And so we can go through these quickly if we want, but let me just do something else because it's going to be a better way for you to visualize something. So we're actually using a third-party service to do our searches. We did a paid one, and we are going to show you when it loads. Here we go. So in US, we're only going to go for owner, Apple Inc. And let's see what we're going to find, because this, unlike the USPTO, shows the actual trademarks. See, this one doesn't. So check this out. All of the icons they've trademarked, right? The icons for individual apps, they trademark them. They trademark the messages, they trademark calculator, they trademark books, they trademark iTunes, they trademark all of their recognizable icons. Why? Because the cost of trademarking is negligible compared to having to fight somebody over that image or over that name or over that phrase or over whatever. Isn't that crazy? Isn't this amazing? Just check it out. I'm going to quickly browse through these pages. And what do we got here? When it loads, there we go. See, more and more settings, the address book, some more apples. Well, no, this one is actually from another Apple Rubber Products Inc. And you will see all of that stuff that Apple trademarks, and I find it quite fascinating. If we actually remove the dates, you will see they got a total of 1,252 trademarks, live or dead, with USPTO. And I bet you there's going to be the same thing in other countries, because Apple has been very, very, very careful about protecting their brands in other countries. So I'm not going to go through Canada or other jurisdictions because this one, I think, teaches a great lesson. The only one thing I want to do is I want to check Retina. So, and that would be here. So they got first trademark for Retina. They had Retina, they had Retina HD, they had Super Retina, they had Liquid Retina. So let's see, Retina. And let's see, retina, okay, can't type. Retina display, okay, there we go. So name used by Apple, the trademark, Okay, it's funny, even Wikipedia talks about trademarks. Apple applied to register the term retina as a trademark in Canada and US, were approved in 2012 and 2014. Canadian application, cited 2010 application in Jamaica. So this is what they're referring to, because you can file a trademark based on a previously filed a trademark in another jurisdiction. And so that's what they did. So sometimes what Apple does is they file in some obscure countries, and then they use those filings and then they assign them to their entities in US and Canada. What they're trying to do is they're trying to fly under the radar with some of their brands to give themselves more safety in developing the products. So this is going to tell us when they, doesn't tell us the year. I want to know the year. History. Tell us, so it's 2000. Okay, so 2010. 2010. All right, so let's see. Retina. 2010. June 7, 2010. So they have, let's see, okay, filing basis. Let's see, filing basis. Currently used, so they filed based on intent to use and the conventional 44D based on foreign application and registration. So if you look at here, the documents, see application, then in the application itself, you will see that they're basing their trademark on their previous filing in April of 2010. Do you know why? So April 13th, 2010, when they filed in Jamaica, they had 6 months to file in other countries. That's what conventional priority is all about. You have 6 months grace period to file for the same trademark in other jurisdictions. So they filed in Jamaica in April of 2010, April 13th, and they filed in the US in June 7th. So they didn't wait the entire 6 months. They filed there, and then they filed in the US. So they bought themselves a little bit of time before somebody discovered it. And their trademark was filed for goods and services, computers, display screens, and other, so handheld devices and stuff like that. The reason people buy phones and iPads and their MacBooks is because they claim to have Retina display. And again, the characteristics of the display may or may not be better than what the competition offers. It's the name that makes it so sexy. So that's it. That's your lesson. Apple is now the second most valuable brand. Amazon has just surpassed Apple after Apple has been at the lead of this list for years and years and years. But still, Apple brand is valued at over $300 billion. That's why Apple is able to have all these customers buying all their, what many consider overpriced products that don't even lead the world in terms of technical specs. The only reason is because there's an Apple on them, is because they use Retina, it's because they use iPhone, it's because they use all of these cool names and logos and taglines and little things that make Apple Apple. That's why the fans love Apple. That's why the fans buy their products. And the brand is probably the most valuable part. Actually, you know what? It's definitely the most valuable part of Apple's business today. So here's your story of Apple brand, Apple trademarks, and I hope this allows you to make your conclusions about your own business, about when you need to trademark your brand to build a valuable asset for your business. If you want to find out more about trademarking your brand, go to trademarkfactory.com, book your call with our strategy advisors. The call is free, and we'll be able to help you figure out what to do when, and if there's a good fit between what we do and what you're looking for, we'll be able to get you started as our client. And either way, if you found this video interesting, make sure you subscribe, get notified whenever the next video goes live. And until then, I will see you in the next video.